Right, we have a shorter presentation next, so I won't waste any time bringing him on. Please, welcome to the stage, talking about leading with empathy, turning good developers into great engineers, Adam Mashek, CTO of Momox. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you very much, everyone. Despite what Crystal said, no lunch break yet. So let me pump some energy into the room. I love to do a selfie. And if in the background you guys can cheer or feel happy or feel like this is the greatest conference, please do raise a hand or cheer or something. Let's try. Come on, you can do better. Thank you. So my name is Adam. I'm going to talk about empathy today. A little bit about myself. I'm coming with a software engineering background, currently working as CTO at Momox. Momox is a leading retail brand in Europe, based in Berlin, meaning we buy and sell books, CDs, DVDs, and fashion clothing items as well. Previously, I worked for Westwing, which is an e-commerce brand for home and living articles. I'm living in Munich, originally coming from Budapest. I'm going to talk about empathy, what it is even, why is it important, how is it relevant to you guys, and how to improve awareness of empathy in your teams. So what it is, if you look it up on Wikipedia, you will actually find the description is not super great. Therefore, I like to use a definition which Roman Krznaric, sorry if I butchered the name, used in his book Empathy. He says, empathy is the art of stepping imaginatively into the shoes of another person, understanding their feelings and perspectives, and using that understanding to guide your actions. And I really like that because it actually visualizes this stepping into the shoe and looking through the eyes of that person and using that understanding to guide your actions. So why is that important for us? Despite computer science, coding, engineering is taught relatively in an individual solitude manner, right? When you learn in school, you go back home, you're trying to tell a computer to do something, right? It's a very solitude art. But actually, in reality, what happens, it's a teamwork, right? Real life software delivery is a teamwork, and many people are involved in that. And there is this old image, hands up, maybe who has known this already? All right, this would say around 50%, right? It's what I call a typical software project in the 90s, going from the top left to the bottom right, right? How the customer explained the project, how the project manager understood, right? Back then there was no product people, project people. There were apparently some analysts doing something, how the programmer wrote it, what the business consultant presented, how the project was documented, right? Classic. What operations installed, how the customer was billed, how the solution was supported, and what the customer really needed. And even today, there is many people involved in delivering value and delivering software, right? Might be different names, different roles, but still, during that time, there is communication, right? And during that time, there is information understood, misunderstood, transformed in a way. And notice that the very top left and the bottom right also differs. What the customer actually explained and what they actually needed is also different. So you need to be able to empathize with that and understand that. And so what kind of forms and shapes of that communication, right? Most classic one, which existed also in the 90s, is emails, Slack these days. So imagine you get an email, where are we with project X? There's a classical answer to this. Anyone knows? 2 words. It's an answer that solves many questions in tech, especially. So it depends. It depends, who asks, what details they expect, what is important for them. If it's the CEO who asks, you probably better keep it short. We are working on it. Goes live next Monday would be the answer. If the PM asks, it's probably you want to include some context which is relevant to how they understand their work around sprints, maybe. If a fellow engineer asks, maybe you want to include some details that is important for them. And notice that what happened in real life is actually exactly the same thing, but how you choose to communicate about it is very different. Now let's say the same in verbal communication. There's a daily stand-up, PM asks, was project X deployed successfully on stage? And gets an answer like this. And these are real-life examples, so I didn't make that up. There are some real-life names as well. And this answer is very non-empathetic, right? Realize the context. You are in a daily stand-up. Probably it's time limited to 10, 15 minutes, so you better keep it short. And most importantly, it was a yes-no question. So the only valid answers in my book are yes, no, or I don't know. Now let's talk about communication in code, right? And code is communication, right? Even if you are a singular contributor to your own code base, if no one else, to your future self, when you look at that code 2 years from now and trying to understand what the hell is happening here. So in the bottom left, there is an old example from the Zen framework code, actually the core code of it, where the engineers just copy-pasted the PHP doc and didn't care really updating the parameter names or even to describe what they are doing. Obviously, it's not helping. It was time wasted on it to write it, time wasted on it for the next engineer trying to read it. Other bad examples is copy-pasting from Stack Overflow or somewhere else, a really elaborate solution and not really explaining or giving a link where it was copied from, or sacrificing readability for conciseness. And there is another favorite example of mine is the Mars Climate Orbiter. Hands up, maybe who has heard about this one? Okay, much less hands, there are one or two. So let me go a bit more details. In 1998, there was a mission from NASA. They wanted to launch a spacecraft. It's orbiting around Mars. Something went terribly wrong. It got into orbit, got too close, so eventually crashed and destroyed on the surface of Mars. NASA made the calculation in current money. It was costing this mission around $500 million. So I can imagine the project manager on this was like, guys, what happened? So there was a postmortem. Yeah. Postmortem figured out there was 2 teams actually collaborating on the rocket propulsion system of this. One was based in the US, I believe, the other one was UK. They had an interface. One was expecting some measurements in pound seconds. The other one was sending it in kilograms per second or something like that. So I reconstructed the code. It's on the top. On the bottom one is the improved version of this, right? So often we use numbers without not caring to put like in pound seconds explanation. And it costs a fraction of a second to write it there, and it potentially could have avoided wasting $500 million. So why is it important for you guys, for us? So in software leadership, engineering leaders like you set the tone, the style, the format, the good and the bad, the blueprints and the expectations towards your team. And how to do that, how you can educate and advocate for more empathy. And Roman, in his book about empathy, actually talks about 4 barriers which hinders empathy. One is prejudice, they are different. Number 2, authority, I was told to do so. Distance, too far to care, and denial, too busy to care. And in your day-to-day work, you have to tackle often sometimes, some less, maybe in engineering, some more. And a couple of tips how you can do it. So definitely do give feedback, right? So whenever you see those bad examples of verbal, written communication, or if you look at code, give feedback like, guys, this is not the way to communicate about it. This is where authority, because you are the leader, is deployed the right way by steering this communication. Definitely do listen. Yeah, listen to all those participants in the software delivery. It might be different days these days than in the 90s, but listen to their views, humanize their different views. And if you have a tool which supports this regular feedback in the company, there are great tools these days where you can surface conflicts and issues from the very bottom of your organization. So listen to them and answer them also. Open up communications. There are often siloed communications in secret Slack channels or hidden Confluence spaces. So try to open up. Visibility and clarity actually removes distance and improves empathy to each other's problems. And sometimes we have to force verbal collaboration. When teams have collaboration issues, try to bring them together, put them in the same room, then it actually gives face to each other's problems and sometimes can help. And this is where, again, authority deployed in the right way. Now, how does it affect you as the CTOs? If I take one dimension to divide what kind of CTOs we have, one I call is the grown CTO, has grown with the company, maybe the startup to the current position, often hands-on experience still with the code, often hired many of the engineers himself. On the flip side, often overloaded. Yesterday was a breakout session, I believe, about burnout. Often blind spot of best practices, not knowing necessarily how good looks like. And then there's a new CTO coming typically from the outside, having no prior knowledge of the company's past choices, conflicts, relationships. Typically needs more listening, patience, and adapting previously winning ideas to the reality of the current company. So let's do a bit of survey. Who consider yourself as the grown CTO or VP engineering lead? It's probably around 10%, and then the rest, new CTOs, hands up. Okay, and there are some who didn't put up, so there is some other kind as well. In any case, you have to be empathetic that you will always have your forehead tattooed boss on it, right? I think yesterday there was also a talk which said that if you are injecting yourself in a discussion, it will already affect that discussion because people will behave differently in your presence. So you will always have that. But out of the 3 powers that exist in an organization, managertools.com has a great series of podcasts on that. Out of those 3 powers, you have very different ones when you start as a new CTO versus when you are a grown CTO, and you have to use them differently. If you are new to a company, you have literally no relationship power with anyone, maybe with HR who hired you or the CEO, but you don't have with anyone else. You don't have expertise power in a way that people understand that, oh, you're an expert on something. The only thing you have is role power because you are the new boss, and you have to very quickly transform that into a relationship power. And as a closing, a couple of other tips again about how to practice this and how to spread awareness of this. If you have an expectation framework or values or principles which you already put there out to train your engineers, see if you can fit in empathy somewhere there. At Westwing and my previous company, we used a framework which we called GREAT, where every letter of this stood for something, and E was standing for empathy. And we were showing exactly those verbal and written communication, good and bad examples to the engineers, so it kind of opens up their mind and resonates with them. Write about it. Another good practice we do is for the CTO and the people in the tech management team. Everyone has what we call a manager on a page, which is kind of a user's manual about how to communicate with you, what to expect from you, and what you expect also from your leaders. Put it out, put it on Confluence so everyone can read it. And last but not least, again, give feedback, right? Again, you are the leader of the organization. How you behave and what behaviors you accept or not accept will naturally create the culture you want to see. So give feedback whenever you can, and that also creates the increased awareness of that. With that, I want to thank you. I don't have the fancy QR code. If you want, you need to use typing my name. Find me on LinkedIn. If you have questions, find me after the speech. Thank you very much.